Hello, everybody. My name is Stratnos, and welcome to Fyrakk Phase 2. So let's take a little detour to talk a little bit about potions. If you're pushing P1 early and you're beating the Intermission shield, it's actually pretty good to just pot here at the start of this phase, and then you can pot again at the end of the fight. You're not going to get to pot during Lust if you do this, but those pots are good for boss damage. 2 pots outside of Lust is better than 1 pot in Lust for boss damage. The other option is to pot some of the ads in this phase, or you could just pot pull and pot the Lust, or pot Intermission and pot the Lust. Either of those are fine as well, but it's probably a little bit worse for killing the boss as much as possible. All right, so phase 2 is underway. The boss lands, and this actually does sizable fall-off damage, so the farther away you can get from it, the better. And then we want to take the boss over here to the back of the room. That's because throughout this entire phase, blazes are much more important than they were up to this point. If any of your blazes hit any of the friendly ads, the fight, it's not over, but it's pretty close to over. It's very, very bad if the boss ever hits any of these, any of the ads with any of the blazes. So, first things first is we're gonna see that one side here, and let's actually, I'm gonna show you this as soon as you can see it. The boss lands, the boss jumps to the tank. You want to, if you're the tank that's tanking here, you want to taunt at the end of the intermission so that it will jump to you. And then you will see these swirlies starting to go to the back of the room. One of them will be 5, and one of them will be 1. And the 1 is going to turn into a big tree, and the 5 are going to turn into 5 little spirits. And this is actually important because it could either be left or right. You could either get the tree left and the spirits right, or you could get the tree right and the spirits left. And whichever side has the 5 spirits is going to have trees on the next 2 spawns, and whichever side has the tree is going to have spirits on the next 2 spawns. And spirits are a lot more annoying to dodge with your blazes. 5 spirits are a lot harder to dodge than 1 big tree, even though it's bigger. So you want to play for most of the fight on whichever side of the room has the tree instead of the spirits, because it's easier to dodge that with your blazes. So what you want to do is you want to make a call. Somebody needs to be responsible for making a call as soon as they see this that says, all right, this fight, like this pull, we'll be playing the 3rd blazes on the skull side, right? We've got a skull marker over on this side. The skull side is where there are the 5 ads. That's going to be where there are going to be trees instead on the next 2 spawns. So this fight, we're going to play on the skull side. I'll point out again where that actually matters in the future. All right, so we got frontal and we got blazes. Blazes here are why we're playing this on this side of the room. And just we're playing where none of these blazes have any danger of hitting those ads. Nice and easy. As soon as those blazes are done, we are now running to the front of the room. The boss, again, blasting the tank, doing these fun frontals. Tank actually in a little bit of danger here. This is a spot where you need to make sure you budget your defensives carefully. And now we get Greater Firestorm, which is a bunch of swirlies, an absolute boatload of swirlies in melee. 2 infernals spawning on the tanks, and another set of blazes. And at the same time, we have ads spawning. And look at this. There are 5 spirits spawning over here, and there's a big tree spawning out of frame behind and to the left. This is why part of the spot where we're playing on skull side is because these people with blazes just have to dodge 1 tree, whereas if they were playing on this side of the room, they would have to dodge all 5 of these spirits with their blaze lines. So you can see these people adjusting their blaze so that it's not going to hit the tree that's spawning over here, and nobody is over on this side, so they don't have to dodge and avoid hitting these spirits. Now me and the other tank stack up and take a bunch of damage from all those swirlies, and then bang, down come these colossi. Now the colossi, there's 2 different types on Mythic. There's a dark colossi and a burning colossus. Sorry, dark colossus and a burning colossus. There's also a shadow cage mechanic and a molten eruption mechanic in this phase. But curiously, the shadow cages stop when you kill the burning colossus. The burning colossus actually just controls both mechanics. So you should target the burning colossus and get it killed first if you want to make this fight as easy as possible. Liquid on their kill even cleaved, and they did an extra set of shadow cages and molten eruptions. I recommend not doing that and just killing the burning colossus as fast as possible, dodge the 2nd set of shadow cages, and you'll be very happy. How do we handle the first set of shadow cages? I'm glad you asked. So the first set of shadow cages are going to come out, and alongside them, molten eruptions are also going to come out. 4 people get molten eruptions, and 4 people get shadow cages. These are both also private auras. But unlike the Intermission private auras, you actually can play around this with reactive gameplay to some extent, or you can use the macro. But there are some guilds that do this reactively, and it's actually totally feasible to do that. So the shadow cages, whether if you're, I'll explain how to do it with the macro. The shadow cages don't use a macro either way. And what you want to do is you want to get 2 people onto the skull marker, or onto the square marker, and 2 people onto the X marker. And the specific position of this marker, you can see where it is on the ground for us. It's on this little feature on the ground. But the important thing is that it's within range of an AMZ to hit both of them. And so the people with the shadow just stack up, and you want them to stack up 2 on one side and 2 on the other. If 3 people stack on the same side, it's okay, but they need to pop a defensive or definitely be in the AMZ. You can see here that the X people aren't actually on X. They're stacked up a little bit outside of X, and they're not inside the AMZ. So they would be in danger if this was a 3-1 split, which does happen sometimes. But you want to try and make it a 2-2 split. Again, people are just doing this reactively. They're trying to form a 2-2 split without any weak aura telling them how to. In the meantime, the 4 people that got the Molten Eruption are pressing a macro. They're pressing the same macro from the first intermission. And the way that macro works is that one of the people will be assigned to go and break on square, and one of them will be assigned to go and break on X. Because as soon as the shadow cage actually goes off, it's going to stun these people. And the only way they can get broken out is by a Molten Eruption happening on top of their head. So 4 Molten Eruptions go out, but they only need to actually, there's 2 stack points. So 2 of them will go and break, and you see they have breaking X and breaking square because they've pressed their macros, and so the weak aura knows that they actually have Molten Eruption, and they go and stand on those people. And the other 2 people who press their macro later don't go in and stay on the outside, and they just stand and take this AoE damage without stacking it on top of anybody. This is the easiest way to do this mechanic. But what you might want to emphasize is like, hey, if you're a healer or a hunter or somebody that needs to be far away for whatever reason during this point, don't press your macro right away, right? Or make sure that if you do press your macro, you're actually ready to go in and break out these shadow cages, because it's a bit of a disaster if you press it and then you don't get there on time. Those people are just stunned forever. Or you could leave the Burning Colossus alive until you get the next Molten Eruptions, but every time we tried to do that, it was a disaster. So yeah, they go on top, they break these people out, bang. Mechanic solved. That's all there is to that one. And then you kill the Burning Colossus. You can see I'm not actually targeting it because I need to keep threat on the Dark Colossus, but almost everybody else is targeting the Burning Colossus, and it will die before the next cages actually trigger. Okay, then the boss flies across the middle of the room, and we get 11 ads spawning here. Now, this is the weak aura that Evelinari, our healer and weak aura expert, created that's actually really good. And this weak aura will... you can, based on your note, you can set up a CC order, and it will look at the most progressed cast of any of these ads, and then it will give you this bar that shows you how long is left on that cast, and then the person who's supposed to interrupt them and the button they're going to press to interrupt them. But before you actually fire off Chaos Nova, you need to grip all these ads up. So gripping all these ads together is important, and that is a job of different people in your raid. And you need knock belts to make this as easy as possible, unless you have something like 2 Death Knights. So the way this worked, here is the ads as they spawned. These left 2 in my raid were handled like Echo did with Death Grip. Then 3 and 4, we would handle these with 3 would be a knock belt from the mage in one set and from the druid in the other set. And then 4 and 3 would both get typhooned towards the middle after 3 got knocked towards 4. And that would happen on both sets. 5 is just close enough to be in the mass grip. And so is M, and so is the other 5. Then over here, we'd have 1 get trapped and stay trapped until we could deal with it later. 2 would get knocked by... Our hunters would alternate knocking 2 with their knock belts. And then 3 and 4, we would have a different evoker on each set that would be responsible for knock belting and then evoker racialing towards the middle. That's how we handled this. It's pretty similar to how Echo handled it. And we would also have our mage would back up with blast wave on this side, and our hunter would back up with high explosive trap on this side to try and knock in any stragglers, which you'll see we actually did get on this pull. So here's that in action. I'm targeting the left 2 and gripping them in. Meanwhile, you can see mobs are getting typhooned and knock belted in, and everything is trying to get towards the middle for a mass grip. I press mass grip. Unfortunately, these 4 are all outside of range of the mass grip, which is more than usual, although it's actually pretty common. We would usually have 1 straggler. 4 stragglers was a lot for us. So as soon as that happens, the call gets made. All right, we've got 4 stragglers. How are we going to get these in? And you can see people starting to use those backup abilities, right? Our mage is going over, going to blast wave these ones in. And we now only have 2 stragglers. In the meantime, this interrupt order is actually happening. So you can see as soon as we actually have the mass grip go off, even if we don't have all of them, we're going to have a Chaos Nova go off, and then our next person's up. They're going to Chaos Nova. Our next person's up. They're going to cast their Roar, and then it's me that's up, and I'm going to press my Blinding Sleet, and then our Evoker's going to press Evoker Racial, and then our next Evoker's going to go, and so on and so on. We do eventually get all of them in, and we get these ads killed together. And again, you also just want to keep them interrupted. And then there's that last one that's ice trapped over to the side. We grip that one towards the middle, and we now move towards the heart again as well, because we don't want to hit these newly spawning ads with our blazes. We do a frontal here, and then as soon as that frontal's done, it's time to go. So we make sure we finish off that ad, and we head back to the tip of the room because it's time to do the next intermission. Now, the second intermission, you actually have more cooldowns for typically than the first one. I would recommend lusting the first not intermission, but the first set of ads rather than the second set of ads. You should lust that one because this one you're going to have more cooldowns for, including Abomination Limb, which is really powerful for getting all these ads gripped up. So again, Colossi spawn. This one is a barrier rather than an AMZ for these Shadow Cages. They try and split 2 and 2, and then our Molten Eruption people press their macro, go and stand on, break those people out. Fyrakk flies across the middle, and then we walk towards the middle and grip, A-bomb limb, all the mobs getting pushed nice together, and then here comes the mass grip as soon as it's off cooldown, and they're all gripped up. Now, the only way that you can get this mass grip off cooldown in time for that is with a Blessing of Autumn on your Blood DK. So you should make sure that at some point between the first and the second ad set, your Blood Death Knight gets a Blessing of Autumn so that they can deliver that mass grip as intended. Once all these mobs are grouped up, again, our weak aura here is just telling us who's CCing next, what CC they're using. Our Evokers actually didn't often have their CC back by now, and the weak aura didn't do that, so I would manually call out, okay, actually it's Seth that's going to do it next, and then it's going to be Jundies and then Parse, right, that'll press their CCs at the end here. And once it's the last few, you can just kick them. And then again, we go over to the side, grip this Screaming Soul in, cleave it down under Fyrakk, and at this point, I should actually briefly mention right at the start of this phase. So as we are getting the second set of ads, this time around, rather than there being one side with a tree and one side with a spirit, there's instead going to be one side that has both a tree and spirits. So what you want to do on this set is identify which side that's going to be, because you can see as soon as they start spawning, and then your whole raid should go and start playing on the other side. So this time, I saw that there's trees on this side, which means the tree and the spirits are both on this side. So I called, all right, on moon side. And you can see our entire raid is on the moon side rather than the skull side, so that we're in less danger of blazing this ancient at the start of that phase. All right, anyways, ads get grouped up. They get killed off. You need to kill the Dark Colossus before it explodes, which isn't too tight of a DPS check generally, although I'm sure you'll fail it like we did on your first few pulls getting that far. Then we just take this ad down, kill it off, don't blaze the new ads. And then we head on over to the front of the room, or to the tip of the room after this frontal, and it's just a DPS check. Now, you'll see there are a few rescues that have gone out here as well. There's actually a few different spots that you need to use rescues and life grips. So let's rewind a little bit and talk about all of those. As we go after the first ad set, so this is after the first ad set, but before the second ad set, once we finish off this last soul, you're going to see a priest that's actually over by the front of the heart and is life gripping one of these small spirits to the heart. And that's just to make sure that it casts on the heart before it runs out of health. If you missed any healing up to this point, that life grip is necessary to not have your heart run out of health. Then the next thing that's going to happen is as the second set of ads are spawning, you can see there's a tree and spirits on one side. And then as Fyrakk is blazing across the middle of the room, there's actually 3 trees spawning. There's a tree far left, a tree in the middle, and a tree far right. And what you want to do here is you want to rescue the tree in the middle off to the side so that it doesn't walk through these ads. These Colossi are actually pulsing damage, and you don't want your tree near there. So you can see our Evoker just rescued the middle tree off to the side. And that is another valuable rescue. And then finally, at the very end of this fight, just to make sure the heart doesn't run out of health, if you've been healing the tree enough, this one isn't necessary, but you should just do it anyways because it's very frustrating to wipe to the heart not getting healed. We do a final rescue on the last tree and just bring it in early to make sure that the heart actually gets enough health to live until phase 3. Once you get to phase 3, the heart stops taking damage, so that is the set of rescues there. Mark of the Wild also works. Interestingly, we looked through the logs. Mark of the Wild increases the healing that each of those spirits do to the tree by 5% instead of 3 like you might think. So make sure that your druid is pressing Mark of the Wild as each of those waves come out, and you'll get a little bit more buffer as well. But it's very annoying. You're going to have wipes to the tree just not getting healed, and they were just a little bit low as they went in, or you didn't get one of these rescues or something, and so that is a fun feature of this fight. Hopefully, one of the first things they nerf about this fight that will make this part of the video obsolete as soon as possible. The other tiny thing that I should mention, which we didn't actually successfully do really on this pull, is a Ring of Peace. So actually this Ring of Peace was attempted to be used. So you remember how on this pull we had the 4 stragglers on the first mass grip? If there's no stragglers, what you want to do is you want a Ring of Peace towards the side that doesn't have these 5 spirits, because you want to try and fight these 2 Colossi and the stack of spirits away from the 5 spirits, because the Colossi are pulsing AoE damage around them. And if this is hitting the ads, it's just more healing, right? You can see each of these pulses. It means there's more healing that needs to be done to these spirits. So normally, if we did manage to get them all mass script together more nicely, we would do a little Ring of Peace to ring all of them to the side. On this pull, we didn't do that because we used the Ring of Peace as an anti-straggler device instead, but that is a useful thing to do if you get that to be a little bit more clean. I think that is all there is, though, to this phase aside from that. So it's pretty mechanically complex phase. One big piece of advice I would give you is practice your ad grouping and CC rotation in Heroic. You can just take your 20 people, go into Heroic, and the 11 ads will spawn as they do on Mythic in the same places, and you can just pull over and over again and practice grouping them together until you're comfortable that you can actually do it. I would recommend spending at least 5 pulls on Heroic doing that once you reach this part of the fight. All right, that's phase 2. Let me just show you the end of phase 2, because I realize now I didn't. The tree gets rescued in. You take the boss up to the tip of the room for one last set of blazes, because you don't want to randomly blaze your final ads. So we do these blazes up here, and you're just blasting into the boss as much as you can here before the last phase starts. A couple of flames are coming out. In this phase, for this whole phase, if you have any dwarves, they should just debuff remove as soon as they get 1 stack. As soon as you get 1 stack of a flame in phase 2, just hit stone form, because it doesn't apply them as frequently, so you just want to remove them immediately if you can. And then, yeah, boss will phase based off of a certain amount of time, 45%, a great amount to push the boss. Lower is possible, and lower is better. And the less health it has, the easier phase 3 will be, the less amount of time you will need to spend in P3. But once the boss flies up, that is the end of phase 2, and that's also the end of this video. Hope you've enjoyed, hoped it was interesting, and if you are progressing this fight, I hope it helped. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.